There are times when things get to be too much, and I just have to address them. And this is saying that we don't know the full story or what's going on with everything around Doom Eternal. Frankly, I'm just tired. I'm sick and tired of the industry, or at least the parts it seems I tend to focus on, and I am just so frustrated. I've paid too much attention to the video gaming industry over the years. The spread of the internet and, of course, where most games reside and pretty much exist anymore makes that easier and easier to do. False information spreading and so on is very commonplace today, or more so speculation without a lot of proof, because gaming companies don't give us much reason to believe otherwise. We never hear the full story, but that's just how behind-the-scenes corporate stuff goes. It's the same for movies, comics, and plenty of other pieces of entertainment, and unless you're J.K. Rowling that wants to keep adding and altering things in her story all the time, you generally get whatever is there initially, and that's it until the possibly next piece of media comes out for the thing you're interested in. With game DLCs and all that, obviously it happens a little bit more often and quicker for most video games. So I think that's one reason it can hurt a little bit more. This mindset of mine has caused me to push away from buying anything from certain publishers per this point with games. Movies are a whole different conversation though. Konami? No way. Activision Blizzard? Nah, not a chance. Capcom used to be on this list, but has since come a long way from where they had been. So there are still ways that they can redeem themselves and change. We're not saying that there isn't. I'm still waiting for Mega Man Legends 3 though, guys. Bethesda proper? You couldn't pay me to play their buggy bullcrap that they count as games, that are then fixed by the fans. EA? Respawn's the only good piece of that company anymore. Change my mind. You won't. But Beard, you said Bethesda, and Doom Eternal is published by Bethesda. Yes, because I am a mild hypocrite, and I knew I was going to support id Software again, as I did with Doom 2016. This is just how I am. There are exceptions to the rule, as Respawn is to EA. Publishers as a whole lately have had me very questioning of what the heck is going on. I mean, some developers are too, with either just hitting the minimum to call itself a game, or a strung-along content model that makes you wonder what the heck is going to happen. And not always in a good way. Ultra-defensive developers and ultra-offensive fans both just make things feel less and less interesting too. But this is getting into something else altogether, I guess. So let me tell you a story. Last year, I went and picked up and found that I was able to play God of War on the PS4, which, a small history there. The PS4 gives me migraines pretty quickly, normally. Some exclusive titles to the system seem to not affect me quite as much, however. God of War is apparently on this list. I say this because what I experienced there, as someone that tends to be dedicated to a couple of games at a time, especially my old MMO habits with World of Warcraft and so on, was just how much of the hobby I was leaving behind of video games. It both sucked and felt great to get away from it all for a little while and play a little different game altogether, learning something new and varying my gameplay from usual. Heck yeah, that's what it's all about. That's what gaming's all there for, to learn different things overall and conquer different challenges. That's a character flaw of mine. I'm dedicated to a fault. I know it. I try my best to avoid it, especially when I have to consider what kind of toxic relation it may be on my mind or otherwise. It's typical of my gaming habits and my past relationship habits. It generally leads to some trouble for me. Anyway, mild tangent again. It's just not great for mental health and so on, and always be around the same games, the same things. Take a break from your long-running game and play something else you might enjoy, older, or try something newer. I would love to be told I'm wrong, and why. Now, the director for God of War said some really dumb things way after the release of the game, and I'm not going to post them here. It just blew up in his face, and of course they kind of did. And I kind of shrugged and moved on. People say stupid things all the time. Have you seen my YouTube channel? He didn't actively or openly take a crack at the development team that unabashedly put together one of the best looking and playing games of the past 10 years. He really was thankful for the work that went into the title and the support that it received from both developers and fans alike. Every piece of God of War made it unforgettable for me. It's going to be with me for probably the rest of my life. The visuals, the music, the gameplay, the story and narrative, the lore, the possibility of expanding the universe that is God of War, the game that is traditionally just a guy beating up Greek and now Norse gods. Kind of sounds familiar. Sounds precisely like what I'm starting to see with Doom, and especially with Doom Eternal. And every piece of it, every incredible moment of it, makes the game work. But it all is extremely important. Every single thing has to work together. The story is enhanced by the lore that you collect, but the story tells you enough to make you know what's going on. In fact, I tend to find it makes you more interested in reading the limited lore, let alone wanting to look further past it and remind yourself of a franchise that's close to 30 years old. The game, in my opinion, works very, very well. The music takes it to the next level. Mick Gordon has a pretty long history of composing for video game companies. He started with trailers and moved up to full compositions. His website shows off his product enough, and his work speaks for itself when you listen to it, or even just view what it is that he's done. There's also a general difference in his work and what he does because of mixing and other audio work on some of his soundtracks that he has a major hand in. In fact, it's one of the reasons that he really stands out in the video game industry for taking additional time to mix the tracks that he has. I'm failing to find proper words to explain it easily, but let's just say music sounds different being quiet and very quiet, and then also loud and very loud. If music isn't mixed right, you won't be able to tell the difference when you really do sit and listen to it. Intensity in music is helped by the process of proper mixing of music. I hope that kind of makes sense. In another way, think of how some movies may really tone down on the volume that they have and then suddenly slap you in the face with something big, aka not a Michael Bay film. This process can take a little while, however. In the case of Doom 2016, the game was released May 13th, 2016, while the soundtrack came out September 28th of 2016. A 4.5-month difference. Almost. This process of making the music sound good at all times, both within the game and outside of it, that's what made the soundtrack of Doom 2016 so memorable to begin with. And it still is. This is not the only case with delayed release and Mick Gordon, however. He's known for taking his time mixing his own tracks, so a small history of releases that Mick Gordon worked on. Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus. Game release October 27, 2017. OST release June 19th, 2018. I should note that this was definitely, like the next one, something that was more of an all-encompassed work between him and several other composers, so keep that in mind. Killer Instinct Season 1, with the game initially coming out November 22nd of 2013. The OST release came out October 14th of 2014. I think it's kind of an obvious one, a bit more of a collection than anything else though. There are plenty of instances of Mr. Gordon working on and having released an OST immediately as the game came out, like Prey, Wolfenstein, Old Blood, and Young Blood, where he did a few tracks on each of these, and even Wolfenstein New Order, where he had a much bigger hand in creating the soundtrack. Bethesda knows how he works over the years, all the way back to at least 2012. So why in the world would they not allow him to just work on the soundtrack and have something incredible come out another several months down the road like usual? I mean, we all know for Bethesda's reason what it probably comes down to. It's all about that money. Obviously, Mr. Gordon was working on other projects between other ones that he had done, and nearly non-stop with the releases that he had worked on. While he was working on things with Wolfenstein New Order, he was working on things for Old Blood as well. All in all, it makes me wonder what's going on through the higher-ups' minds, be it at id Software or Bethesda, which frankly, this has Bethesda's typical MO of recent written all over it. I'm not going to go into the history of it. If you know, you know. But this really doesn't feel like id Software's push to get this soundtrack released. This very much feels like Bethesda. The thing that really makes me scratch my head is how they're handling it on the website. The idea of lossless tracks from the soundtracks, mixed by Mick Gordon himself. I know how they'll spin it, too. The 2016 soundtrack was mixed and managed properly, so they'll just say, that's the lossless and mixed ones. We never processed that for Eternal, see? It'll be stupid technical speak that does no favors for Bethesda's publication platform, while they already are on thin ice. It's just disrespectful to the composer in one way and the consumer all in another. And as much as all of this matters for what's going on with Mick Gordon, with the consumers overall and such, it doesn't really play into my general thought pattern and where I'm at right now. For me personally and completely in this whiny tirade, I am just feeling so beaten down by the industry at this point. I said that story about God of War earlier because what I felt there, I felt with Doom Eternal again. And I still generally do with the game. I want to keep talking about the game, and I want to keep sharing my thoughts on it, its lore, its gameplay, everything. But my morals and ethics are making it harder and harder for me to want to do so. And it's a constant issue I face with this industry, while they chew on people that absolutely do not seem to deserve it at all in making a product that's quality. It really does feel like that old saying of failing upward is happening more and more often, and I don't like it within an artistic value. It's more about who you know, not what you know, and that is garbage. Maybe something comes out and Mick Gordon turns out to be a wasteful pain in the butt. Who knows? I know that was the argument that Konami had for getting rid of Hideo Kojima back not too long ago at this point, actually. I remember the issues that went into development for Destiny early on, before the first one came out in 2014 as well, with Joseph Staten and Marty O'Donnell and the work that they put into that for the writing and composing respectively. Every game, it seems, I want to focus on or want to cover or care for in some way has blemishes. They're not just director of God of War said dumb thing blemishes either. They seem like inability to work professionally together and an unwant to form a product that is in favor of the consumer overall at the end of the day, or meeting the minimal viable product that can be seen from a game, which seems to be further and further what so many developers are going for. And that is absolutely asinine. Where I could make the argument that games were about art and how they could be built and put together both through storytelling and visuals, I can't say that near as much anymore. And this is not to give anything to Doom Eternal because it's still a great looking game. It's still a great playing game, but these blemishes just give it a really bad little look. And that's not good for it overall, for its history, for anything else that anybody could look into over the next several years and consider about the title or the development process that went into it. And it's not good for anybody thinking about joining the industry either. I can imagine that is such a big turnoff to anybody to not be able to do something that they would want to do, even if it's beneficial to anyone that may play the game. Am I being hyperbolic? Absolutely. This is just how I'm feeling right now. I'm just having this really hard time wanting to talk about titles that are just lining the pockets of people that are otherwise ordering around those that create what makes them cash, and doing so in a scummy, dirty way. Disagreements are going to happen. Limitations in systems, in hardwares, in engines, everything like that is going to happen. But don't bite the hand that feeds you. I'm thinking if I use any Doom Eternal music and videos going forward, it's not going to be the official release tracks. Not for this treatment for the composer. Bluntly, I did the same thing for Music of the Spheres, and how Bungie handled that. The same treatment is just constant around the industry in music, and I wish I had more information to really dig into this. But it's just insane to me how things are evolving. Or devolving. your call. I'm sure part of my issue is other stuff going on outside of gaming. We all know about what I'm referring to, but I'm just tired of seeing everything that the gaming industry has to offer right now. My patience is wearing thin. I don't want to see people lose jobs, but the only thing I see making sense at this point is for the industry going through some kind of upheaval and large change. Until then, I'll consider that what content I'm making is for you guys and not for them at all. But to the crowd that just listens to my stuff and doesn't support or buy the games that I cover, I'm starting to understand your mindset quite a bit more lately. Anyway, that's it. Take from this what you will. See you later.